Welcome to the RPG Podcast.
And we are live.
Oh, God, Patton!
Presented by SHEATH. A Time Wheel production.
What's up, everyone? Robert Patton here, SHEATH Underwear. Thank you so much for joining the Robert Patton Global Podcast, sponsored in part by SHEATH Underwear. Today, we had a very special guest. His name is Mike, the God, Harrington. He is one of the main producers at the Believe You Me podcast. He works at the Gas Digital Network. He's an all-around good dude. He has very humble beginnings, starting from the car, living in his car, to making his name in the industry of podcasting. He's a very motivational guy. He's a very hardworking, and he has a very positive attitude, and we were very happy to talk to him. So enjoy the show.
That's actually not a terrible idea because I have been kicking around, especially while I was sitting in quarantine, like kicking around doing my own in-depth like MMA breakdown show where we touch on some of the topics that we might not have time to on Believe You Me. So Anxiety Attack, now that the name's out there, it might not be the worst idea for a show. But Believe You Me is Michael Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. Twice weekly, they sit down, break down the biggest news in MMA in the funniest way possible, bring you the best takes, I think, on the best stories out there. And yeah.
Are you giving yourself a humble brag by the best stories out there because you produce some of the stories they talk about?
No, I mean, realistically, I what it comes down to, I don't make any of the decisions on what stories we do. It's what is hitting me from MMA Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, I curate my feed, I curate my Reddit, I curate, the media sources that I go to. But it's like, I'm on whatever people are talking about, whatever other shows are going to be making YouTube videos about. I want to make sure that Bisping and Lewis have a take on that.
Yeah, and they do really have the best show. I used to listen to The Fighter and the Kid, and I even went to one of their comedy specials, which was super funny here in Denver. I stopped listening to Fighter and the Kid and had been listening to, and still, was listening today to Believe You Me, which is, I guess, with the scandal with Brian Callen, maybe Fighter and the Kid's going to jump up into the ranks. Maybe. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, who knows? It's one of those weird things. Like, I think D'Elia's last podcast before he went dark ended up doing really well. So I could see it being a thing. But Callen did say he was going to be taking a leave of absence from the podcast. So I don't know if that means Shab is going to keep going. He already has his own show. He has his, the breakdown, and he has another show with Theo Vaughn.
And the kitchen one. He does a lot of stuff.
So he's got a lot of projects going on. That's one of those things where it's like, I mean, you can't really let the main brand die, but without Callen, he can get away with doing an episode or two with like Sasso and Rappaport, but after that, it's not the same show. So that's they're in a very awkward position. When Callen ended that video on Saturday saying he was going to be taking a leave of absence, that was my first thought, was like, all right, so with is that just ours now? Do we just what goes on? How does this work?
You guys are the kings now. You get straight to the top.
Oh, man.
You're going to be famous. You're already kind of famous because of how much they talk about you. And it's really funny. I get a kick out of it.
So like it does not escape me, like the irony of it. You know what I mean? Like there was a time in my life where, the first UFC event that I ever went to was UFC 159 in Newark, New Jersey. On that card, I watched Michael Bisping get a decision win over Alan Belcher. I remember where I was when Michael Bisping beat Anderson Silva. I remember where I was when Michael Bisping won the title from Luke Rockhold. Now to have him yell at me like 2 or 3 times a week on air is just like, it's still blows my mind every single week.
That sounds like the law of attraction. Have you ever heard of that?
So, yeah, I have. And like, there definitely is it's a weird thing working in this industry. I processed this yesterday. Like, the only comedian who, I quote unquote, like, look up to or, like anyone who I'm a fan of, you know what I mean? I've met pretty much all of them, with the sole exception being Kyle Kinane over the course of the last like 3 years. And that just came from a place of being like, yeah, I want to I want to be part of this world. I want to everything about this is attractive to me, and it's just kind of happened.
Yeah, I love the UFC. Well, now you were just talking about comedy, weren't you? Did I go? Were you talking about comedy?
Yeah, I mean, in that law of attraction sense, right? So, like you were saying with Tuesdays with Stories, like that was my gig as a contractor, just driving around, like listening to all these shows. So to go from, listening to these guys to, from being in a situation where I was telling a girl the other day, I would drive home from, playing poker all night long to, a Joe DeRosa album, like on the way home at daybreak, and now I produce one of his podcasts. Like his numbers in my phone. He texts me about like stuff with the show all the time, and I don't know. It is a really cool thing.
It's not a coincidence, I would think. I mean, what you think about, you bring about, and see, this is the kind of stuff we talk about on this show, is because I'm super into the woo of business and success and just the universe and how amazing it is. And it could all just be a coincidence. The fact that you were listening to his tapes and he's I don't know, like constantly in your brain, and like an opportunity comes up and but you know him, or you're a huge fan and you jump at the opportunity more so than what you focus on. Obviously you're going to get closer to. It worked for me kind of with like at least believing that it was possible to maybe work with these people. And I'm talking to you, and like I'm one step closer to Joe Rogan. Now I'm talking to Mike Harrington.
That is a wild stretch to me, in the sense that like I've met Joe Rogan once.
See?
You know what I mean? And a lot of my friends are friends with Joe Rogan. So like that is a weird 6 degrees of separation thing. But it's like maybe, if you're like, I see, you're always posting stuff with Cowboy. You got, Bryce Mitchell's an up and coming star. It's only a matter of time before he gets on, JRE. So yeah, I mean, for sure. It's like, if your goal, right? If your goal, you were to set out in 2018, so I want to shake Joe Rogan's hand by 2021, that's an easily attainable goal. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah, I see. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I could. Has Bisping ever been on? I believe he's been on once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Bisping, right when I started working on Believe You Me, Bisping was booked to be on Joe Rogan, and then I think he got bumped last minute, and we were like, oh, what the hell? And he got bumped for like GSP, and it's like, all right, like GSP does one long form interview a year. You know what I mean? Bisping has a weekly podcast, so you can't get too mad at that. And then he ended up having Bisping on like 2 or 3 months later, but it was pretty funny in the moment how that worked out.
Was this after the fight?
Yeah, this was after it was after he lost the title. I think it was after the Gastelum fight too. So it was maybe like spring of 20. What would that be? 18? Think so.
Yeah. I don't know. It was
because I think he won the belt in 16, lost it in 17, and then lost to Gastelum in 18. Retired. Dude, that was the craziest thing. Like, that's one of the most surreal moments I've ever had. I was Memorial Day. I was in, like, we had just opened up the studio at the Gas Digital Studios, like the new one that you see on all the Gas Digital shows. And I was in here. I was like, I think the only one allowed in here. I was just cutting all the clips. And I happened to cut Bisping's retirement. Like, Bisping retired on the show. I don't even think we might have been live. Yeah, we were live streaming at that point. So, like, the 200 people who saw it live were the only people who knew. And, like, the recording wasn't anywhere. And I was the one who got to, like, cut that recording and then make sure that, like, MMA Junkie got it and all those other news sources. So a fighter who I definitely like was a fan of for a long time and followed his entire career. I was like, I was in the room when the guy retired. Like, it was surreal.
Amazing. I was in the living room watching the Ultimate Fighter reality show when he was on there. I watched every season for quite a while. So I grew up watching him and watched him grow up and all of his maturing over time. And my wife is like, he's a little shit, when he was on the show. 'Cause he was always stirring up trouble, and he kind of still does, but he's so smart. It's amazing how quick he is, and a lot of the fighters actually, but more so him than a normal one. But like you would think they would be a little bit more punchy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that he talks about it sometimes. Like that whole concept of like the bad boy Brit was like, he had that in the forefront of his mind. Like an American audience loves a British villain. You know what I mean? Like that's why the Dan Henderson thing has been a meme for over a decade now. Because there is something about that inside of us that we just love a good British villain. So.
But I rooted for him. Like, and I'm American as they get. But like, I for some reason I liked him. You know what I mean? Even as a villain. I
remember I was tangentially a fan. I was tangentially a fan from I want to say 04, 05 through 2009 maybe. Then I started actively watching pretty much every pay-per-view from 09 on. So it became a thing where I only tangentially knew Bisping. I knew he was like a guy who was constantly calling out, the biggest names. He was constantly saying he was going to get a title. And I never really liked him until that Alan Belcher fight when Belcher came up and was like, I want to put tattoo for tattoo on the line. If you win, I'll get a Union Jack or something tattooed on me. I win, you get Johnny Cash tattooed on you. And Bisping just laughed at him and was like, you have so many bad tattoos already. I'm not adding another one. Proceeded to beat him. So it was it's not like Bisping would have lost anyway, but it was like, you're pathetic to begin with. I'm not engaging in this with you, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, he's very quick on the wit. Like you are. You think you're you do well on the podcast. You hold it together sometimes when there's grasping for straws. Or what do we talk about? Harrington, say something.
Yeah, I mean, my idea is just honestly, I want to hang with these guys. I know that nobody's tuning in to Believe Me with Michael Bisping to hear what Mike Harrington has to say, but anything I can do to kind of get those guys something to dig into, it's I love setting people up. That's what I think I'm good at in broadcasting, and it's definitely something that I want to lean into.
Well, you do it well. Don't sell yourself short. I think when you're not on there, it's lacking slightly. There's that little Kramer coming in the show on Seinfeld. It's not the same if you're not on there. I would say, just putting that out there. Brian's cool too, but you see, I don't know what it's just different.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Robert. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming on here. I just I'm a junkie. I'm a podcast junkie.
Hell yeah.
I love comedy, but I don't watch it as much as I obviously listen to podcasts and just watch the UFC. And that's kind of my wife and I watch 90 Day Fiance, which is the learning or some chick show. But for the most part,
that's her one thing.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, I watch it and it's not. It's so salacious and just over the top, ridiculous that it's kind of funny. So we watch it.
I feel that. I used to have that with my ex, where I got her into the UFC. This was during the rise of Rousey, so it was pretty easy to get your girlfriend into UFC. But I got her that was a lot of our TV watching time. And then when it wasn't UFC or like you said, me putting on a dumb podcast on YouTube, it would be her being all right, Property Brothers, all day. We're watching all the HGTV, all the home renovation, whether you like it or not, because you get to watch men fight in their underwear all the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fair trade-off. And those shows that can be kind of fun. If you're in that mode of remodeling houses and whatnot. And we just got done with that. And so it gives you ideas, but and I like to think that the whole law of attraction aspect of you want those things, focus on that, and
right.
it's more likely to happen.
to give you an idea, that girl now has, like her business that she was like working on, you know what I mean? Like working on the business plan for while watching Property Brothers with me. Her business is now successful and she owns a home that she gets to renovate all the time. So God
Yeah,
bless her. Like that 100% is, that law of attraction thing where she saw something, she wanted it, she got it. And, like that's, I don't know. I guess that's where if you're focusing your energy on that, like what else is the universe going to return to you?
exactly. It's so even if it's bullshit, woo woo, magic talk, it still works. And so why not write down your goals, think about them, put them on a vision board, and
You do all that?
I do. I've done it for a decade, and
Huh.
it hasn't not worked. I mean, I don't know what's happening. It blows my mind because of how successful Sheath is, and it's not like I'm not driving a Lambo yet, but we're like getting there. It's crazy how we're gonna do like 2 million in revenue, which is a it's it's hard to comprehend really, because
Of course.
I don't think about money now. Now I'm not making $2 million. If anybody knows business, we're
Of course.
grossing 2 million. Therefore, I'm gonna make maybe like 200,000 or something, right? But
Right, right, right. Yeah, but it's still to the point where like you've still hit a level of fuck you.
it's a level of fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only fuck you there it's not toward is our customers, basically, because I still answer to them. And
Obviously, that goes without saying. You're a business owner, but like
yeah,
what I'm talking about with that level of fuck you, like I see it with Lewis. You know what I mean? Like that's somebody who over the last like 3 or 4 years has hit like a certain level of fuck you, where I'm like, all right, like that's for me, that's the goalpost. You know what I mean? Like when I started working in this industry, it was just don't be homeless. You know what I mean? Like find a way to work in this industry and make enough to keep a roof over your head. And it's like, all right, like I wasn't doing that for a while. That became a goal. I've now hit that goal. Time to get on to the next thing. And it's like, I don't know. They're seeing that in other people
yeah.
is like, it inspires me for sure.
Well, and that's another huge like principle of success, which we talk about on this show, is like who you hang out with. The 5 people you hang out with the most is who you end up being more like. And I would gotta say, you picked 2 good people to hang out with that I know of for sure, and I'm sure there's more in that digital network. Like, do you get to see Dave Smith or the other owner, the SDR host? I forget his name.
Ralph Sutton. So what
Yeah.
I see Ralph minimum once a week because we have a production meeting every Monday that he pops into. But other than that, I mean, Ralph has been. I haven't seen Ralph too much because he's had a lot of shows that have been banked because obviously he was very busy during quarantine. So I don't think he's come in to do a live SDR yet. Uh, and on top of that, like he is in that like at risk range, so he's
Yeah.
being like pretty careful, obviously with the COVID and everything. So I haven't seen him too much recently, but typically I would see Ralph 4 or 5 times a week. Like Ralph is. It is a shame. Like it sucks not getting to see Ralph all that much, but I understand he's got to take care of himself. But I
He had
mean,
he had originally reached out to us in 2018, which I was weird because after we had started working together with Gas Digital, I was somehow I started following his show, and then how you have the messages there, and I saw he
oh
had
yeah,
messaged us like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh man, hey, what's up? I said so. It's been really good though working with this network, just from an advertising standpoint, also an entertainment standpoint. But we make our money back, which is key. I believe leads to improvement of yourself. You never want to be the smartest guy in the room, but you're pretty smart. I don't know, but uh, the most successful guy in the room. You want to be probably one of the less or successful people because then you're learning still.
I'm trying to think of the last room I've been in where I was the most successful person, and it's got to be probably like 4 years ago. You know what I mean?
I was
Like
gonna say the bathroom.
yeah, fair.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the Port Authority men's rooms while I was homeless. Other than that,
Tell me about that, the homeless thing. Like, what how did that happen?
well, you know, so I had a place in the East Village here. I essentially I was in a situation where I had multiple revenue streams coming in. A lot of those just dried up, and I found myself in a situation where I was like, all right, I can't afford the rent that I have right now, and so every dollar I had was going towards paying that, and the lease was up at like the end of the month, and I couldn't. I couldn't find a place that fit into my budget while like trying to figure out moving like all my stuff. So I ended up just like, I took a bunch of my stuff, I left it at my brother's, and I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this one out. And,
Nice.
I woke up on Caitlin Rupert's couch on April 1st, homeless, and to a text that one of my best friends from growing up had just OD'd. Yeah, so that was like it's one of the worst days of my life, honestly. That, just waking up that morning was like, oh, this is what loneliness feels like. Like, that sucked. And then, I don't know, like, one of the coolest things in the world happened. I ended up in a situation where, my living situation was really affecting, the work that I was able to do here. It really affected my performance. I was running myself way too thin. We couldn't figure out on like a fair compensation plan because, I was working all these hours, but I was really spinning my wheels a lot of the time trying to make up for screw ups that I had. So like all that extra work wasn't going towards anything like positive for the company. So it wasn't a thing where I could even justify being like, yeah, I need to make more money.
Right.
So it came to a thing where when I fought Lewis at Skankfest last year, like it was quote unquote for my job. And the agreement that we had was, I'll stick on with that one show BYM, but everything else, as far as the network goes, like we cut ties. I get paid as, an independent contractor on that one show. And it allowed me a situation where I was less dedicated to spending my time here. I was able to find, like some more side work to supplement my income. I was able to find a lot more side work inside the comedy / podcasting industry. That's how I started working with Joe DeRosa and Corinne Fisher on Without a Country, because I had the free time from not working at Gas Digital to work on that show. Eventually, 6 months later, that gets brought back into the fold. And I never dropped Comedy Fight Club. So now I got 3 shows on the network. Like, it's kind of undeniable. I got welcomed back into the fold. But yeah, like that 6 or so months of, sleeping on couches, sleeping on park benches, floating all around the city, doing things like I would go out to a comedy show, get there at like, 10 p.m., stay there until like 1 a.m. when it shut down, go with a couple of comics to the bar around the corner, stay there until 4 a.m. And then it's like, all right, well, I got 2 hours until the sun comes back up, and then I can go to a park to take a nap, or I can start my day, get some work done, wherever. I can go look for side work. A lot of that was relationship building, networking, honestly, character building.
Yeah, totally. I could see that. It's a great story too. And great story starts at the top, so you have like a nice place to measure your success from, and you've come a long way.
That's true in the sense that, like, throughout all of that, I never once missed a show. I never once was, like, shirking my responsibilities. The show did not suffer for the main show, Believe You Me, didn't suffer at all for my situation. And that was, like, a huge point to me, no matter what the situation is. Like, I've legitimately been in a situation where the police are coming to arrest me. I know they're coming to arrest me, and I have to like do like the one finger up, like, guys, give me a second. Like, last item of notes for Bisping and Lewis.
I remember that podcast. I was listening to that podcast and you had to tell the story about how you went to jail. I don't remember the details of the story, but I don't think it was anything serious.
A little bit. So I didn't know that. I thought brass knuckles were frowned upon.
Tried to take them on the plane.
I didn't know they were illegal, right? Like I thought it was a thing where it was like if they found too big of a shampoo bottle, they would just throw that out, be like, you're a knucklehead, you can't bring that in here, that.
Silly guy.
Right.
Yeah.
What they said was, this is a felony weapon or something like that. Like, this is an illegal assault weapon, so we have to call the Port Authority Police Department. And they had me sit down, and while I was sitting there, I was like, all right, I wanted to get this done at the terminal, but I've got 8 minutes until the cops get here. I gotta bang out these notes quick.
Nice. That's dedication. I have employees, and I feel like in this scenario, they are the Harrington, and I'm the Louis J. Gomez, and sometimes you got to challenge them, and I'm supposed to fight one of my employees.
Okay.
To Steven, but he's way bigger and stronger and younger, and he is a fitness. That's his job, and that's what he does. Besides, he works for SHEATH, but aside from that, he's
like a personal trainer on the weekends and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's
an Instagram model dude.
He was our very first model. He's been with SHEATH since day one, and
he's not the dude showing off the riffraff boxers, is he?
No, that guy is Josiah, and he would murder me in 1 second.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't want that smoke, Robert.
No, not step into that. But this guy's not much smaller or less big, to be honest. So it's, I think that was the same thing. Not much smaller or less. I don't know what I just said. But strength wise, he's a strong kid, and it's gonna be kind of staged. Since here's the thing. The reality, the secret is not many people are going to hear this. If they do, the secret, people. But if it's it can't be a real fight because I'm too old and he's too wild. He's not trained, so, but it's going to be, it might be kind of like what Tyson and Junior, what's his name, is going to, the fighters, the boxers.
Roy Jones. An exhibition.
Yeah, a little bit, but Mike says, somebody gets cracked, then it's on.
So that's true, and that isn't. I found that out today. I got a pretty good lesson from Diego Lopez. He's been a guest on Believe Me before. He trained Lewis for his last fight. We're shooting for Lewis's fight coming up. So I was getting some work in because I have a boxing match with Dylan coming up for who gets to be the engineer on Real Ass Podcast, and I found out, Diego was explaining to me that because I'm not trained, I am significantly more dangerous.
Yes. Totally.
And he's to an extent, right? So I was making the point, all right, I look at Diego has fought professionally before, you know what I mean? He is a fighter, that's what he does for a living. He trains fighters. He could beat the shit out of me if he wanted to. So in my mind, I can't hurt Diego. So when I'm throwing at him, I'm throwing I'm trying to knock out the boss in a video game. You know what I mean? And he had to make that point to me, yo, you tagged me a couple of times, and anybody else, if they weren't trained, would have just unloaded on you. He's like, I am a nice enough guy where I was still just tapping you, and when you kept coming, I eventually had to hit you bong, 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 because I can do that at any time, and I don't want to fuck you up if I don't have to. But it's just to put you in check. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A couple of tases to all right, motherfucker, you're getting a little bit too frisky.
Right. And he explained to me, yo, those wild hooks you were swinging, they weren't going to connect. But if they did, they could have put me out, and that's not cool. That's not what we're trying to do here. You get that? And I was like, oh.
How fun, though. How fun is
scary.
Are you liking it? Are you having a good time with that?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Today I puked. So I found myself in a situation where 3-minute rounds. Right. Did the first one, was very left it very confident. Was very happy with how I did because I was going way too hard. That second round, I started to feel it in that last 30 seconds. I was checking the clock. You know what I mean? Then that third 3-minute session, by minute 2, I was completely gassed. And I was like, all right, all I can do is pump this jab to keep Diego off me, because he's going to keep coming. He has all the energy in the world. I've blown my gas tank. And that was a truly frightening feeling. But it's nice to feel that. You know what I mean?
That sounds great. That sounds cool and fun. I sponsor a lot of lower level fighters here in town, and I've been considering having them come to my house and like spar train with me, because I'm so busy that I can't even go to the gym, you know?
Are gyms open out there?
They were. That's a very good question. And I know the gym I was going to, the coach, I'm just, as you were saying these things, I was like, dude, I could go be getting personal sessions with Gilbert Smith, former UFC fighter. He was on the contender.
Dog, you don't got to tell me who Gilbert Smith is. I met the guy at UFC 159 and asked him why he was wearing a shirt.
Nice. Yeah, he's so jacked. He's like still, and he's modeled for us a couple times. He's my trainer here. Unfortunately, when I left,
he was also known on The Ultimate Fighter. That was the Kelvin Gastelum Uriah Hall season, and at all times he had his shirt off. And I think he ran that back for when he came back on the comebacks like 2-3 years ago. Just constant shirt off dude, which I really respect about the guy.
Well, I would not wear a shirt either if I looked like him.
Right?
He's like my age, 42. He's still jacked.
Is he really?
Right around there, and like he's kind of like Yoel in a way. Romero, obviously.
I thought he was in his early 20s when he did The Ultimate Fighter. That means he must have been like my age now when he did it. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's at least 36, but still in great shape. And
Gilbert Chocolate Thunder Smith.
Yeah, Colorado Springs, Victory MMA.
Hell yeah.
And he had coaches, some other fighters who I was thinking about having come up, and we sponsor them, and so that's pretty cool, like to sponsor the lower level fighters. But I was training a couple of months ago, and we moved right in so I started in like January. I actually met him on the plane coming back from the Cowboy fucking McGregor fight. And I was talking about how we sponsored Cowboy, and he didn't say anything the whole flight because he was one aisle over. And as we were getting up, he was like, "Oh, I was in the UFC." I was like, he looked so familiar, but I didn't say anything. And he was there with Holloway, and so I ended up connecting with him. We sponsored, like I said, some of the fighters, some of the gym, essentially to an extent, and we've done quite a few photo shoots. Point is, the training you're doing, I find to be invaluable. I feel like you are getting a treat, a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's one of those things where, like, Lewis kind of made this point, like, to Dylan. He's like, yo, you don't want Harrington cutting weight, because if he's cutting weight, he's going to take this seriously, and he's going to actually, like, try. So, like, I've hit this point where my goal was to get to 190 by fight week, which was supposed to be in September. It's now the first week of August. I weighed in this morning at 188. So like I'm finding myself in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm like actually having something on the calendar, having something to work towards there's nothing like it.
You wake up in the morning, you have that like determination because you have that goal, right? Something like that.
I mean, not only that, it's like on a day where, like yesterday, right? It was, or hell, this morning, I didn't want to get out of bed. It was 9 a.m. I didn't want to get out of bed at all. And, you know, like I was supposed to be running with Corinne. I was supposed to be, you know, training maybe with Diego later. And I was like, somebody hit me up to come in and do Real Ass Podcast. And I was still like, I can't. I talked to Dylan for a minute. And I was like, all right, like, I want to hit this kid. I'm going to get the chance to at some point. Let me take every moment that I have to be focusing on this. And I just went outside and started jumping rope, right? Like, I'm not kidding. I just got that workout in because it was like, I get to hit him at some point. Everybody in this room wants to hit him right now. I'm going to get to hit him. I cannot mess up this opportunity.
What is so annoying about him?
He's 22.
That says a lot.
Like, think about who you were at 22. You know what I mean? Like, I would not want to hang out with 22, 23-year-old me right now. Like, he was kind of a jerk. So
I was an idiot. I know that much.
So it's like it's one of those things where we're producing the show this morning, and like like a little thing came up, and then like he tried to make like a joke at my expense, and it didn't go over, and then he tried to explain it, and I was like, dude, there's nothing. Like, I'm not mad that you made a joke about me. I'm mad at how badly you just bombed, and now everyone's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to hit the guy in the face sometimes. Like, he's got a real punchable face.
Do you think that people that hear like Mike and Lewis give you shit all the time, they're like, oh, I can just talk shit to Harrington too?
So I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen the other, right? Like, there is a lot of fans who see that and are like, I understand this, right? I understand the bit that they're doing on the show, and I'm going to continue doing that playfully. There's other people who, like, there's also people who come to my defense who are like, hey, you guys need to stop picking on Harrington. It's like, I think I like that less. You know what I mean? Like, that idea of like, hey,
I mean, because I don't know. I say Harrington the God, which is always playful.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It had a nice tone ring to it, but I guess, but I get that they're just fucking with you and hazing you, and if they weren't, then it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as fun.
Well, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, anybody with like half a brain would process like, all right, this is a very successful show. I'm dealing with somebody who just called the biggest UFC card that's happened since 2018 in Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Lead color commentary, that was Michael Bisping. There's no doubt in my mind that if I was not good at my job, I would no longer be employed. So
No.
I'm very confident I can take a ribbing on air because I'm very confident that I'm actually like I help bring a good product out there twice a week.
Totally, so much. It's so fun. We like my wife listens to it. That's like one thing we both listen to, and sometimes like if we're gonna be hanging out, we'll save it so that we can listen to it together, like doing chores or whatever. And it's I mean, I don't know why it's not more popular, but what I love is how out there Bisping is in the UFC and just on Netflix and everything that will further promote the success. And I know, like, I don't want to get into anything. We've been working together for a while. Believe you me and Sheath, I love it. They love us. I want to continue working with them, but if anything were to ever happen, I would wish them utmost success and hope that when time is right, we work together again. And so just putting that out there. Love the show.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And for sure your support does show. Like, there's no doubt in my mind there's no doubt in my mind that the support that you give the show, especially like you hooked us up with the Bryce Mitchell, which was a highlight of this year for me. Been a big fan of that dude ever since the Arkansas promo. I don't know if you remember his first win in the UFC.
Hell yeah.
Arkansas!
Like, Donald Trump, you need some security or something like that.
That was so. Here's the thing. That was his second promo. His first promo was just he screamed, "Arkansas, Arkansas! I'm from Arkansas. I ain't supposed to be here. They don't want nobody from Arkansas around here. But I'm telling you, I'm putting Arkansas on the map, baby," or something along those lines. And I was like, man, this guy, like, he believes in himself. He believes in where he grew up. He thinks he's the toughest son of a bitch in the UFC. Like, I fucking love everything about this kid. And I was on the hype train immediately. He has not disappointed once in the cage or on the mic after. He was incredible, having a conversation with us. And it was a dream guest. And I thank you for getting him on with us. And it definitely is a thing where I notice, like, I see constantly, Sheath Underwear is retweeting and liking and promoting the BYM pods. And we really appreciate that.
Always. Yes. And I mean the piece we cut out a piece of the show last week when Bisping was impersonating GSP, and because I laughed so hard when he was doing it, and then I made my wife listen to it, and then I was laughing so hard when she did it, and then I would listen to it again. I was like, this, I don't know, it's just so like perfect that I want to cut it and promote it. And share it with other people, because you remember when it was like morphing from the different accents from like GSP to like South Africa
For
to
sure, for sure.
Indian. It was so funny. So love that. Love Gas. I'm in my one of my favorite new shows is Part of the Problem, and I guess you don't work with them. I get because you have your specific podcast, but do you hang out with them at all, Robbie and Davey?
So I mean, I'm good friends with Rob. I used to regularly produce his show when he was, still pre-corona times, when we were doing it every Thursday. So
Okay.
Rob and I have a really good relationship. I worked on Part of the Problem for a very, very, very short time in last year. Like, again, being one of those things where I was just had way too much on my plate and
Exactly.
was being
Yeah.
super ineffective. But I enjoy the hell out of Dave. I enjoy his process. I enjoy that he looks at the big picture, the small picture, like everything involved in a Dave take has been thought out. And anytime I try to come at him with
Yeah.
like any kind of for the people response in any kind of like bleeding heart bullshit, Dave will immediately, like, whether or not I agree with him, he will have a thought out, measured response to it. And it's why I enjoy getting my news. I enjoy Dave being a filter for my news.
Yeah, dude, he's like a genius in the logic. I feel like he uses a logic method of if this, then this, and if not, then whatever, however that logic, I took it in college and don't remember it, but very systematic into his thinking. And he's converted me. I mean, actually, I was already a libertarian, kind of, when I took a test. I voted libertarian in the last election. Gary Johnson.
Why
Go Gary.
bother?
Because it was a protest vote, and I used to want to be on The Apprentice, and I used to like whatever, like look up to him because he's fucking successful and a baller and like all the things that you think you want to be, if what success means in America.
That's fair, but I feel like we also live in a time where we saw Shark Tank do The Apprentice 20 times better.
Yeah, Shark Tank. Yeah, they did. Yeah, and it was. I didn't vote for him ultimately because as things started coming out, and he's just like, it's just funny because my wife is like, that's so not the fucking problem with him, but she hates him, and then people viscerally hate him, and it sounds like you're not a huge fan, and that's
no,
but like.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, not to echo every single comedy podcast in the last 4 years, but I think the guy's hysterical. I think he has the hardest job on the planet, and people have been waiting to see him fail from the moment he took office because he is who he is, and I don't think that's long-term healthy for your psyche as a person to have that much animosity towards the president.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be over. It was funny. It was fun. I mean, I'm scared about Joe Biden, but like, I feel like it'll be just like back to business as usual. But I don't want that. And that's why I want him to lose, because it's funny. It was funny as a clip, but when it go, like, my wife hates him. So everything he does or whatever, it's like, I don't like that energy of his negativity. You know what I mean?
Right, and then on the flip side, you have people like my parents who are like, they're in the demographic. You know what I mean? Like, they are the people who are like, you know what, it would be nice if America was great again. Because they grew up in the '60s. Like, they're not like, my mom did engage in civil rights marches in the '60s. You know what I mean? Like, she was never like a bigot by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a certain, like, Kyle Kinane talked about it the other day. He's like, he just stopped hating black people or he just stopped hating gay people. Now you want to tell him about trans? Like, give him a break, So like,
totally.
Like, there is sort of that for my folks where, like, on the flip side, anytime he does anything, there is, CNN talking about him. There's people like your wife who are talking about him. There's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's a million different places that are saying negative things about him. And that creates like this walled up, like, fervor defense for, well, it's not the easiest job in the world, and I'd like to see you do better. And my parents having that negativity on the flip side of like, so it's not healthy or good for them either. So who is this good for?
Yeah, ultimately, it's not good enough. It's not good for anyone. And, I listen to Part of the Problem, and I'm gonna vote for Joe Jorgensen probably, or maybe Biden, or maybe I don't vote. But like,
I mean, to me, the real protest vote is just not voting. Like I live in New York. We have literally gone blue every year since 1988. The sole exception being Ronald Reagan, where the only state that went red was, or the only state that went blue was, I think, Minnesota.
wow.
At the end of the day, like the guy, I think lost it might have been his home state. He might have lost his own home state. I'm not sure, but like 49 of 50 states went red. That's the last time New York went red. So when I say my vote doesn't matter, my vote literally does not matter. So to me, the protest vote is like, why would I waste 4 hours on a Tuesday to vote when I know it's going to come back Joe Biden? Is Colorado a swing state?
It's pretty liberal, and I think that we went.
When's the last time they went red?
I don't know. I know we have a Democratic governor, but I don't. It is. I think it's still kind of a swing state, though, to be honest, because there are a lot of Republicans in the city I live in. There's a sign that says Woodland Park, where all lives matter. So,
bro,
but they actually just took it down, but it was up for like a good 2 months.
That is hysterical. So in the last election, 74% of the population turned out, and the popular vote went to Hillary Clinton in a 48-43 margin. So it is pretty split.
Yeah. See,
you're talking 5% of the vote, 120,000 votes deciding 9 electoral college votes. That's significant. And the factor in there was Gary Johnson pulled 144 of those votes. So you give that 5% to Trump, and he carries the state.
Whoa. Because I was going to vote for Trump probably. I mean, when he came down the aisle, like, oddly enough, I had been living in a house since from 2013 to 2015 with a bunch of guys. We did not have cable. We were strictly working on SHEATH for 2 years, like no bullshit.
Sick.
A lot of psychedelics, a lot of meditating and yoga and stuff, but no news. So
hell yes,
it was a great point in history and we made a lot of inroads with SHEATH, making it getting its foundation started, but something was going on with my ex-wife at the time and my daughter up here in Colorado, where she was getting sick and unable to take care of my daughter. So I had to leave the house, the team. But it was a fucking very touching moment, because I remember I was talking to my brother, shout out to Matt. He was like, dude, we got you. He's like, like, you can go. And it meant a lot because it's my daughter, obviously. And but SHEATH is my baby, and I'm like leaving my team, and they held it down, like, and I'm still up here, and I got my daughter through high school. She's in college. I just dropped her off yesterday.
Sick.
She's fucking killing it. She has 2 jobs. She's member of the student senate and also like a member of this welcoming committee. She just went a week early because she's going to be welcoming in the freshmen. So she's like super about it, like most people go to college and waste time, but she's like participating.
Right. Like make the most of the 4 years. So in Colorado, they're doing live, like in-person school.
She goes to like a very secluded school in the middle, like, of the mountains.
Okay.
And so I feel like they are in a little bit of a different situation, because not all schools are doing it. I know that Colorado State University or whatever, that's not what it is, but there's like another one, the University of Colorado Springs.
There's CU, CSU, CU Boulder.
Yeah, they're not, because they're like such massive institutions that having everyone show up all the time is just not. They're going to do online, but for whatever reason, my daughter's school decided that you could do either, and she wants to be there.
Of
And
course.
yeah, and I don't think for like as a father, as a citizen, and whatever we understand about COVID, I'm not scared for her. Like she's 19, healthy as
Right.
a fiddle. Like, not that fiddles are healthy. She's very, she takes care of herself. And but in God forbid, like she's the one. But those people, that age range isn't getting sick, and so I'm of the opinion that we should honestly just open it all up and see, and let the chips fall where they may. I know that was heartless to say a few months ago, but I think a lot of people, with masks and with social distancing and being careful, but not just like blatantly opening everything up, but
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it from the beginning. Some Meemaws and Peepaws are going to have to get it, and it's like, it is what it is, guys. At the end of the day, like, we are not. This was a 2-week thing to slow down the curve.
yep.
Back in March, we're on week 17, week 25 now. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
And that's the part to me where it's like, all right, like I understood it being a thing where we can't overrun every hospital, but as long as the transmission numbers are not spiking towards overrun hospitals, I don't see why we shouldn't do, I don't know, as much as we can. But then I also get things like today, somebody talked to me about how him and his wife both got antibody testing, and 3 months ago it said they had antibodies. Now it's saying they don't. So are the antibody tests wrong, or do the antibodies wear off? Like, either one is possible, and either one is terrifying. So look,
freaky. Yeah.
At the end of the day, do I think I'm going to die from it? No. The one concerning part to me is that, I spent 3 months of this with my folks in South Carolina, and it's like, I mean, if they get it, that's
Right.
a problem.
I have been very careful, at least for the first 2 months. Like, I was like, I did not leave the house, and it was nice. But I see these fucking checks that the government is sending to everyone. And I have, when I got out of the Army, I got some subsidization afterwards for while I was going to school. I even got a couple of months of food stamps. I got stuff that if I hadn't gotten it, I may not have been able to start SHEATH, because it helped me get over the hump of, there not being any profits. So I see the benefit, and I believe in the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, that Andrew Yang was talking about. Here's the thing. A lot of my other Army buddies that got out around the same time, they're still just getting checks, and they're kind of just like making families and living their life, and kudos to them. They sacrificed their life, and veterans, I'm grateful for the care that we get when we get out of the Army. People talk shit about it, and I guess it's overworked in some, like, bottlenecked in certain areas. Here it's been good. Texas was good. My point is, like, just some people are going to take advantage of it and like create art and music and a business off of it. And some people will just get that basic minimum. And I guess as long as everyone's being taken care of, maybe there'll be less crime, that could be something.
I mean, like there was a documentary that came out. I think it was actually the end of Zeitgeist. Did you happen to see Zeitgeist?
Yeah, that was great. That was a great movie.
So, like, that concept of, like, all right, if we're actually moving towards automation, right?
Yep,
like, if we actually get rid of a one world government that's trying to keep everybody down, keep everybody oppressed, and keep power, like, in a vacuum, we could reach a point where we automate society, give everyone a UBI, and let people, like, if there was I was talking to my buddy Ian about this. Like, if there was a program, right, where it's like, all right, the government's going to give you, $2,400 a month, right? Like,
Yep.
$600 a week. That's what you're getting. But, if you want to, right, instead of setting up, unions and municipalities and setting up a thing where you have to go and hire let's say, a full-time carting service, right, as your, like, trash collectors. That's a union job. You get union benefits, union medical. You get a pension involved with that. There's so much money, so much taxpayer money that goes into that, when you could just have a thing where it's like, all right, sign up sheet, 20 people, if 20 people sign up today, if they want to go and collect garbage, we only need 10. We're taking 10 of the 20 selected at random. If your name wasn't picked this time, you get to get picked next time, and you can go make money that way. You
I
know,
like
and
that.
like if there was a volunteer if there was a sign up sheet where it's like, hey, if you go to the park today and rake leaves for 3 hours, we'll give you $50. I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that.
There
You know what I
should be,
mean?
yeah, absolutely. There should be opportunities for civil service in our society. That's like, why don't we have that already?
And it's like, if there was a fund, right? Like, instead of paying people who are dedicated to do this, if there was just a fund where it was like, oh, hey, homeless guy, like, if you really want to eat, instead of begging, go and rake leaves in the park, they'll give you $50. Like, who's not doing that, right? Like, we
Right.
would have a cleaner city. We would have and we wouldn't need to, like, you know, we wouldn't need cars getting screwed by the street sweeper coming. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much more. I feel like that money could be going to, and I feel like people would take the opportunity to bring themselves more money if there was more accessible programs like that.
And okay, so you touched, we're getting deep in this bitch, but you touched on a huge thing. It's the money, and we can just keep printing money. We do happen to be in a huge level of debt, which you can't even comprehend, like $27 trillion. So the money, and like, it's not there, but we can just make it. But here's the thing: where is it fucking going? And I feel like there's so much corruption and theft from the pool of money that is being sent to the government through taxes, that if we found out how much waste there really was, we could do all of these social programs.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, the military spending doesn't need to be where it's at.
Definitely.
And I'm not trying to, like, you know, again, I know you're a veteran, so I'm not trying to take anything away from the troops there, but I think that there's, like, a lot of people, like Tulsi Gabbard was literally the only political candidate that I liked for the entire, you know, for this entire, like, session of possible, you know, people who could be running the country.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and she was a veteran, and you're not offending me. I think that the military budget is bloated. There's so much waste. Being a former soldier and seeing the inside of operations, it's a lot of unnecessary do this busy work, or sit there and wait and hurry up and wait and go to the other side of the world and post up. For what? Like, what are we doing here? Because there was no weapons of mass destruction. Like, that the whole war was a farce, and I bought into it hook, line. I was fucking watching the shock and awe on Fox News. The opportunity arose for me to join, which was basically desperation, because I was at a dead end job and had no more money and just like totally hopeless. And that's how they get soldiers to join when there's a fucking war, a Sunni triangle happening, people are dying every day. Like, why would someone join? We'll give you $13,000 cash, pay off all your student loans, and whatever, you know, basically save the day.
Pretty sweet deal, honestly.
It changed my life, man. I was fucking going nowhere fast, and that was a huge upswing. Went from, you know, $20,000 in debt to $20,000 in the bank. So that's $40,000 turnaround, and a full-time job, benefits, healthcare, and it allowed me to buy my first house. And then when I got out, you know, they take care of all my medical. Like, there's a lot of benefits from joining the military. And so, like, to kind of circle to, I feel like that there should be some sort of civil service here. You know, you don't have to go be in a war, but you like should maybe go. I felt like going through basic training changed me significantly, showing me how I compared to my peers on a pure desire level. Like, I wanted it more than they wanted it, and I won. Like, I won this test of physical fitness after the whole 13 weeks. Of all of the 260 people in my battalion, this short, white, slow, unathletic, just average guy, the epitome of average, I would say, and I won. And it showed me, like, if you push, you know, if you push yourself hard enough and like focus hard enough, I don't know, you can just impress yourself.
You're talking about like forced service, right?
But that's more military, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's like every European country has that. I feel like no.
See, well, and I think why don't we have some kind of, but coming of age as a man or as an adult? I know why we don't, because we're a free country, and you get to make your own decisions and stuff. But I think it would be good. It was good for me.
Yeah, I mean, if there was like a thing where you have to, show up and do XYZ to be eligible for this job, and that involves like, you have to show up on time, you have to like keep something clean, like all of the like life skills that young men learn in basic, I feel like could be translated in a civilian program easily, no?
Yeah, it's like going to, like, not boot camp, but the when you're a kid and you get your badges because you were in
Like
the
Boy Scouts?
Boy Scouts. I mean, but just like a more tougher level, obviously like an adult version, and more of a physical fitness aspect of it, because that's such a huge part in mental health. And it was so crazy just overcoming a lot of the obstacles that they put you through, like rappelling out of a helicopter or off of a wall, and climbing those huge, like these like 100 feet tall logs with you just kind of have to like climb over it. Or anyways, so much of that stuff would show people like what they're capable of. And I look at the society that we have, and we, like my daughter's age, seem to be very soft and cuddled or enabled or entitled, and never really having been put in a situation where they had to step up and get a job done, where like you just need to like put some pressure on the kids to be more tough. And as a relatively successful father with a kid, like my daughter, thank God, I don't know, she's a hard worker by her natural kind of instincts, because she's been sort of coddled, and I've taken care of a lot of the stuff for her. So and maybe that's, I mean, a lot of how people turn out is just like you kind of are who you are. You were, in a way, you're gonna be who you're gonna be, but surroundings make a
Yeah,
huge.
but that concept though of like putting like like in the fable of Hercules, they talk about like Herculean tasks they put in front of him, the 20
Yes.
labors or whatever, like what he had to do to like prove himself as like a demigod, like anything that would replicate that for, like adult men 18 to 22, I feel like would seriously help grow like a better, I don't know, like it feels like it makes sense to society to like put challenges in front of people and have them overcome them. It's why I enjoyed doing Spartan races and Tough Mudders and all that horse shit when I was like super young. It was like, oh, this is a goal. I set my mind to it. I accomplished it. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and like the fight you're about to have. I mean, that sounds so exciting. When is that happening?
So it was supposed to happen March of this year. Got postponed to September. Got postponed again. We're looking at
Because
March
of
of next
Skankfest.
year.
We're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's at Skankfest,
Oh.
and we can't do Skankfest because we can't be inside right now, which kind of sucks.
Dude, you guys are pros, though. You guys like help carry it, and I really feel like he has his podcast, Run Your Mouth. Shout out to Robbie. He's always shouting me out, which is very kind. And you don't have a podcast, but it sounds like you might be wanting to start one called Anxiety Attack.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is it's definitely a thing where I tried it when I first started working at gas, and it became a thing where it was like I never want to do a thing where I'm just showing up again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I definitely don't I don't want to rush into anything. I do want to consider what I'm going to do before I jump into it again.
That's fair. You don't want to overdo things, and I sometimes feel like this what I'm doing, which we do like once a week. It's kind of sporadic, but I really feel like it forces me to step up, have a nice conversation, learn a few things.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess the ideal. I will tell you this, like being so I started the first show I worked on when I started working at Gas Digital was Hammer Fisting. And that was it was its own show. You can still get some of the archives, I think, on wherever you get podcasts. But that was a thing where they didn't have a producer. I was just hanging out. I needed to like learn how to use the board, so they stuck me on a show and said you can't screw it up. Essentially, like that's really what that show was, and it got me to a point where it's like, all right, I'm dedicated to showing up this time every week to do this show, et cetera, et cetera. And, that, like, without that experience, I don't think I'm as good a producer on Believe You Me, And it's like I had to do that for like 18 months to get my feet wet before I was ready for, something bigger.
You're making my wheels spin because I want to start like a Gas Digital Networks type of a thing. And we have a multimedia company called Time Wheel that I'm part owner of. And it's mostly psychedelic music, but we have a host. We have
hate that.
Yeah, it's all indie. My brother started it. He's also co-owner of SHEATH, but it's a huge psychedelic kind of meeting spot. If the guy Mitch Schultz, he made the movie DMT, the Spirit Molecule. My brother works directly for him. He's been working with him for the past decade on his.
That's very cool.
It is pretty cool. So I've met Mitch. We've done DMT. It's been a learning experience for me as well.
Dude, that is why I couldn't. Not gonna lie, that's 100%. Well, not 100%, but it's 80% of the reason why I wasn't able to make it to the taping on Sunday.
Nice. Tell me.
So I was in Philadelphia for Comedy Fight Club. Shout out to that show because that is just talk about like a labor of love. I love doing that show. But went out to Philly. I know. So I don't know if you're familiar with like Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast.
No.
Okay, so they're like friends of ours. Shane Gillis has been on like a bunch of guest shows.
I've heard of him. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast is their show. Matt, the other guy, has like is super into psychedelics, like the mind exploration, all that stuff. So we had a guy come in who explained, did like a whole rundown of what DMT is to him, and then just left like a massive Tupperware thing of DMT, and I was like,
whoa.
Well, I would love some of that. So we ended up doing that till the very wee hours of the morning, and then driving back late that night. And then, there was just no. I woke up and like I started to get my day together, and I was like, no. You need to go back to bed. You have seen some things that are not like you're not ready to rejoin the world of the living yet.
So when I did it, I took it. I like put a little bit on a bong and took a huge hit. Like not three. What was it? 3 hits. There's one time when I've done it a couple times. I think I did 3 hits off of a pipe, but I did like just 1 hit off a bong, and I just held it until it started going like one. Like I kind of went inward, and then I shot out of the top of my head, kind of, and I saw myself in a like a light body, not sitting in the lotus position, and then so I could see myself. Sound slowly stopped. It was like it didn't just stop suddenly. It was like and it like stopped, and then I went to another dimension, which I'll try to describe as it was obviously like a bunch of geometrical shapes opening. It was like thousands of doors opening until I got to the other side where it was very sunlit. There was a glass house. It was sunlit, and there were I remember like 2 jesters sipping tea, And one of them turned around to me, looked me dead in the eyes, and put his finger to his lips and just said, "Shh," like that. And then
Creepy.
yeah, so I go back and all the doors start closing, da, 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 and then I end up back in my body and I'm relatively back to normal in relatively no time. But we didn't do it all night. It was kind of like a one-time thing. But when he said this, I interpreted it. It wasn't just like that. It was like, we have this under control. All the inner workings of the universe are we're dealing with that.
Right. Don't come here looking for secrets. Like, we got this.
Yeah. Handle your business on your plane. We'll take care of this plane. I mean, you got to see it, but whatever. And it almost was like, it's basically like, don't come back here. So because we were gonna do it again the next night, and I had the bowl packed, and I was like, but dude, they said don't come back. So I remember pouring a bowl out into the toilet. I ended up going back quite a a year later. And it wasn't, but that's the most profound one. The other ones were just kind of like, not as conceptual.
Yeah, I feel like the coolest one was the first time. We got a bunch of them around here, like those little pen, like a regular, like a weed vape, just happens to have DMT in it. So I took like three, probably more, like 5 or 6 big rips off of that, and just like held it for as long as I could. Body went limp, and I remember I had a painting, like an Art Deco style, like of Havana, Cuba. And like I just remember, like I locked eyes with that painting and like fell into it. And then became a beam of light, went back to the Big Bang, saw the entire creation of the universe as this single beam of light back to my body. And I was like, well, that was a whole bunch.
That's still too much.
I literally raced through the entire universe. Like, I need a cigarette.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. It's cool because, like everyone's experience is different. I felt like one other thing I got from it was I felt like I totally left my body and went somewhere else.
For sure.
And because of that, I felt like consciousness could exist outside of the body. Call me crazy, whatever. It made me feel like death was less to be afraid of,
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's also something where it's like, I'm not in a rush to get there.
No. But
like that definitely changed me at one point. Like, there have definitely been points where I've been like depressed, on the verge of like suicidal thoughts. Like, how can I possibly continue to go on another day living like this? So getting from like knowing that there is that like peaceful plane somewhere else that maybe I go to, maybe I don't.
Right.
Like, hey, have as much fun on this one as you can.
Definitely. But also, I think you're like 32. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 32.
You're still young. And I know, here's a little life lesson, that the more partying you do, the worse you're going to feel at times. And because I've gone through bouts of depression, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I've been drinking like a lot, and it's, it doesn't make me feel good the next day. I will notice that I'm less pleasant. You know what I mean? I don't know. Just putting that out there. Life lesson, take it easy sometimes. Don't party too much. You're in New York City. So,
to be honest with you, my thing is I quit drinking when I was 19. I had a bad drinking problem.
Good. Okay.
So I knocked that out of the way early, and I haven't, there's no attraction to go back there. 13 years later, it's like, I have so many more fun things in my repertoire now that, drinking sounds like it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
And the fun thing is, I did, ecstasy doesn't make me feel bad the next day. Not that bad. Not to where I can't get anything done.
You feel good? Okay. Well, just drink water. Exercise. You're doing it. You're
2
doing
gallons
it.
a day, dog.
Okay, so then you're doing it right. Like when I was 19 and I was doing a lot of like party drugs,
Mm-hmm.
I did not do them with any intention, no forethought, no like I'm gonna try to something. Like typically these days with psychedelics, you want to maybe kind of work on something, when in yourself, like address some issue that you're having. But back then, it was just like partying. Point is, try to use it's medicine, so you want to use it to make yourself optimal. That's what and so anyways, I'm preaching to
You're fine, dude.
well, because
Definitely.
I wanted to ask you though, like how hardcore is like the party scene in New York, because I hear glimpses of it and I'm like like it,
So, I mean, it's weird. So like New York is now to the point where like, people are I was talking to this girl the other day, like, yeah, I really enjoy microdosing mushrooms. She's like, ugh, what is this, 2018? Like everybody microdoses mushrooms. You got to get into like microdosing LSD. And like there's a lot of people who are in open relationships, who are in poly relationships, who are looking to do a lot more of that partying. So I think the culture is a lot more friendly of that here. But yeah, there definitely is, especially in the circles that I run in, which tend to be very comedy, very nightlife, very entertainment oriented. There is just, there like I haven't seen much slowing down as far as that goes in the time of Corona, right? Stims for stims, if you will. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there definitely is. I know that especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of psychedelics going on during,
nice.
Even, this post shutdown or post lockdown New York here. There's been a lot of psychedelics going on. So it definitely is a thing where it's like, the only thing I need to do is worry that my tolerance is getting too high, and like maybe space this out a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's all I ever would suggest with those things, because it's like less is more in a lot of instances. I mean, I smoke weed every day, like pretty much all day, so I'm not really one to talk, but I do know that that's like the lesser of all the evils, like you were saying, compared to alcohol. These other things are like taking vitamins, basically. You didn't say that, but it's like almost good for you in a sense.
Well, I mean, there is definitely this thing, like, like I said, I puked in training today, right? Like I absolutely, I gave everything I had no more, had to run off the mats, like literally like puking in my mouth. So when I got home today, yeah, I did smoke a little bit as like recovery, settle my stomach, settle my nerves, settle the little nagging pains that I have going on, and reset my day. And then it was a point where you called me and I was like, how do you use a telephone?
Yeah, I feel like this went really pretty well overall.
Not mad at it at all. Would love to come back on at some point and go over how I got started with these guys, maybe inspire some other people to leave security and wealth behind to become homeless in the streets of New York. But yeah, for sure, man. I'm really glad you didn't cancel. I'm really glad we got to do this. Absolute pleasure talking to you, Robert.
Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, we didn't touch all of the topics, but we hit quite a few of them. Do you do comedy?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm not funny.
You're funny. Okay, because it's a lot of it.
I just love telling people that. It's my favorite thing. I just love getting the responses, because every now and then they're like, oh yeah, that checks out. You're not funny at all. I appreciate that.
No, I think I chuckled.
But no, I don't. No, dude, I just love producing. There is something about it. Like, there's nothing that gets my blood flowing like live stand-up comedy, right? Like, it is a dance between the performer and the audience, feeling people out, getting people to react in real time. It's especially the weekly show that I produce, Comedy Fight Club. It's a lot like pro wrestling. It's like a mixture of comedy and pro wrestling. And there's something about that just gets every bit of creative juice in me flowing. And I'm so content just producing a great show. I don't there's no desire in me to be a performer.
Yeah, I want to listen to that Joe DeRosa, or
Corinne Fisher, Without a Country.
Without a Country. What is that? What is the content, like, give or take?
So it's Joe DeRosa and Corinne Fisher. They look at like basically what's trending on Twitter, give like a breakdown of that, and then they look at 4 hot button news stories. Like for instance, this week we had Trump banning TikTok.
Yeah.
What's going on in Portland.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the other 2 stories that we had, and it's driving me crazy that I can't right now. But, Brian Callen, they talked about what's going on with the league getting dropped by Netflix, like all of those things. And what they try to do is they give the right's perspective on it. They give the left's perspective on it. And they're like, all right, Vice, you're an asshole because of X, Y, and Z. Fox News, you're a dickhead because of X, Y, and Z, right? Like, where is the middle ground where we can look at a subject, we can look at the news that's given, not skew the data, and figure out what's actually going on, because there's so much bias in no matter where you get your news from. So it's really an exploration. People are talking about like this wave of purple. So like purple podcasts, purple blogs, purple websites, purple commentary. Like that's kind of the concept, is like
middle,
like Joe has been on Fox News before, right? Joe has leaned conservative before. Certain people would label Joe as a conservative. He's certainly the most liberal conservative person I know. Like realistically, he hates the conservatives. He hates the liberals, gives everybody shit. Corinne is obviously a diehard liberal, but she's actually a little bit closer to the center and less like out and wacky. Like she's not like Antifa by any stretch of the imagination. Like she sees the silliness of the left. So it's interesting to just have 2 people who understand how the game is played kind of break down in like a 4D chess way for the layman like me.
Interesting. I might be interesting in sponsoring that. That sounds like something we would. I want to promote more good, like outlets.
I'm just saying, Corinne just took an underwear selfie last week, and I feel like it's a damn shame that she wasn't wearing sheath underwear.
I'm saying, see, all right, well, broach that maybe if you want. And are they on guests or no?
They are on guest schedule, yeah. So you can talk to you know who to talk to over here about that.
And
very cool.
All right, well, I will not keep you any longer. This is the longest podcast we've ever done. Thank you for keeping me entertained and for everything that you do and always supporting Sheath and whatnot. I look forward to talking to you again. And you can find Mike Harrington. I believe it's M Harrington.
It's at them Harrington, THEM Harrington on all social media, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, etc., etc. Or just think of me as like non-binary, like I'm a them Harrington.
Yeah, that guy. Them. That's right. All right, peace, everyone. SheathUnderwear.com.